As we've studied, the Bolshevik Revolution happened in October 1917, and this was when the Bolsheviks took control of the government. However, it's one thing to take control of the government, but you then got to keep control and ensure that you can control all of the country in order to be successful. So today we're going to have a little look at the question, how did the Bolsheviks keep and extend control once they took power? Now, there were a lot of groups of people who were very unhappy that the Bolsheviks did take power, and they did not intend to let them keep it. And we call these people the Whites. And if you remember, they went to war with the Bolsheviks to try to get rid of them, which is known as a civil war. The Bolsheviks needed to make sure that they won this civil war if they were to survive. If they lost the civil war, that would be the end of the Bolshevik government. And as we know, they did win, but we've got to ask ourselves why. And you can divide this. There are sort of two main categories of reasons: the strengths of the Bolsheviks, reasons why they won, and the weaknesses of the Whites, why they lost. Some of the strengths of the Bolsheviks are Trotsky's inspirational leadership, the fact that the Bolsheviks believed what they were fighting for, and war communism. And if you remember, war communism is when all of the food and industry is all geared towards supporting the army to make sure that the army won the civil war. And this had a lot of bad consequences on the ordinary people of Russia, but it did mean that the Bolsheviks were successful, they won the civil war, and that therefore meant that the Bolsheviks survived. In terms of the weaknesses of the Whites, we've got a few of them here. We've got the fact that they got no shared aims, not enough soldiers, and that they treated their soldiers very badly. And it's debatable which one is more important in helping the Bolsheviks to win the civil war and to keep power. And basically what you've got to do when you're answering a question like this, you've got to make your decision. You have got to choose, so no sitting on the fence. Another reason that the Bolsheviks were able to keep their power was to do with this Kronstadt uprising. Russia suffered badly during the Civil War, and one of the consequences of this was the Kronstadt mutiny. And Kronstadt is a naval base near Petrograd, and the sailors there were very, very strong supporters of the Bolsheviks, but they were really horrified by the terrible consequences of the Civil War, particularly the famine, which was the result of war communism. And so what happened was that the sailors mutinied, demanding better conditions for the people. And the Bolshevik troops, the Red Army, were sent to crush the mutinies. And the mutiny itself was not very successful, but the mutiny did make Lenin think. If his most loyal troops were angry enough to try and sort of overthrow him, what must the ordinary Russians be thinking? So he knew that he had to change his policies after the Civil War to try and make himself a little bit more popular. So he switched to the new economic policy, which is also known as the NEP. The NEP was a very, very popular move with the people because, if you remember, small factories could be privately run, so owners can make some money for themselves, and the peasants were allowed to sell their surplus food instead of having it taken from them. So again, they were able to make a little bit of money for themselves. And so whilst the NEP was very unpopular with the Bolshevik parties as a step back towards capitalism, the NEP did make the Bolsheviks more popular in Russia and so helped them to secure and extend their power. So we've looked at 4 reasons why the Bolsheviks were able to sort of keep control. The first 2 are to do with them being able to win the Civil War, the strengths of the Bolsheviks, the weaknesses of the Whites. We've then looked at the Kronstadt mutiny and how that made Lenin have to change his thinking and how he introduced the NEP.